Hey everyone, Guys Progressive here. This is going to be a video response to D-Landing Cole's video. A lot of interesting things I thought he said in the video, and I wanted to respond because, didn't want to spam your comments, D-Landon. So here we go. First, you start off by saying that Wikileaks took a risk that was not their risk to take. What exactly do you mean by that? What exactly do you mean by they took a risk that was not their risk to take? And how does that equate to them having blood on their hands? Because I'm just not understanding the idea of them taking this risk that was not theirs to take. If you mean in the sense that because of the precarious situation the citizens, the Afghans are in Afghanistan, that releasing these documents in a way that could possibly endanger them is what you mean by WikiLeaks took a risk that's not theirs to take. Okay, I think I understand, but I would say that applies to the U.S. and the NATO forces as well. Because if the U.S. and the NATO forces are really concerned about these individuals, they understand that if they understand that they're fighting with the Taliban is putting civilians at risk, they could always pull out, but they won't. So if you're going to say that WikiLeaks took a risk that's not theirs to take, that applies to the U.S. and the NATO forces as well. Because they're also taking risks that are not theirs to take. So if that's what you're saying, I don't see how that doesn't apply to United States and NATO forces. Next statement sort of plays on what I was saying, which is why I think what you're saying about WikiLeaks is that they should have made sure that no one in the country is put in danger by their releases. When you said making sure no one trying to build their country was put in danger. Well, I don't. Well, here's the thing. Afghanistan, I'm sure you would agree that Afghanistan is a dangerous place. And so I feel as though this standard that you're setting, saying WikiLeaks has to make sure that no one is ever put in potential danger, is an impossible standard you're setting. I don't think the United States and NATO forces can make such a statement that we're going to help you, and we're also going to make sure that no one's put in danger. No lives are put in danger by our helping you. I don't even think the United States I don't think the United States and NATO can make such a statement. But you expect a news organization to be able to make sure that Afghans are not hurt in this process. If you could explain why you're saying that it is paramount that WikiLeaks not put harmed in danger and set a precedent that the United States and NATO forces couldn't even live up to. I mean, you wouldn't make the United States and the NATO forces live up to such a standard. You wouldn't say, United States and NATO forces can help, as long as they don't endanger people's lives. You wouldn't say that. So why are you holding? It seems like you're holding WikiLeaks to a different standard than you would hold the United States and the NATO forces. To me, that's the way it strikes me. Next, you go on to say, there's no way to distinguish between whether a death was caused by WikiLeaks. And you say no one has really grappled with that topic, and you would like to see that. I want to know what's the distinction you're trying to make here. I think you need to flesh that out here, because I'm not quite grasping. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just not very smart. But I'm not really grasping the distinction you're trying to make here. Because you're sort of saying, because you're sort of admitting that there's no correlation between WikiLeaks and civilian deaths. It's going to be very difficult to prove that. You're admitting to that, right? But you're still sort of positing that there's no, positing that someone needs to. You're still sort of saying that someone needs to wrestle with this. Someone needs to wrestle with this. There's no way to distinguish it. So I would like for you to flesh it out a little bit. What do you mean, particularly when you say there's no way to distinguish between whether a death was caused by WikiLeaks or not? And what exactly are you hinting at here? Because from my view, if you can't prove that WikiLeaks is directly related to the death caused by a civilian in Afghanistan, and I think you're sort of admitting you can't, I don't see how you can posit that argument. To me, it's a straw man. Plain and simple. What you're saying is WikiLeaks is responsible for any potential harm that may come from these releases, even though you wouldn't hold the United States and NATO up to that standard, and B, there's no direct correlation between WikiLeaks and civilian deaths in Afghanistan. But you posit that argument, but you make that argument so you can sort of undercut WikiLeaks as an organization not to be trusted. And it sounds a lot like a straw man, because there's no evidence to suggest that what you're saying is true. So unless you can flesh that out, the whole WikiLeaks and potential harm, I think it's a straw man, quite honestly. Next, you say something about don't help them winning unwittingly, sort of referring to terrorists, maybe killing civilians. I'm going to ask you to define what help is, because I don't know what helps terrorists and what doesn't help terrorists. I honestly, I don't know. I mean, does Hillary Clinton making her statements, which you which you said, and I agree with you, were unfortunate and problematic and don't help? Does that help the terrorists? Does Senator Joe Lieberman from Connecticut saying he wants to prosecute Assange under the 1917 Espionage Act, which, if you look into the history of the Espionage Act, it's just used to shut down dissenters? Or same thing from Dianne Feinstein, Senator from California, Democrat, by the way. Do those statements hurt? I mean, does do do United States does the United States drone striking Afghanistan and Pakistan, does that help or hurt? I mean, what helps or hurts? I mean, you're just going to have to define what helps or hurts if you're going to say don't don't help them wittingly or unwittingly. You're going to have to define what helps or hurts because I have no idea. I just figured that everything's relative essentially. That it every I mean, you can literally make an argument for anything helping or anything hurting. So I don't see. You're gonna just gonna have to flesh that out more again. Um, then you get into your Iraq Afghanistan distinction, which I understand, but I don't understand. um, basically, you're doing the sort of Colin Powell, you break it, you bought it argument or theory, right? Like, if you go into a country, you have a sort of obligation, a responsibility to sort of clean up your mess, if it will. So if you go into a country and bomb the shit out of the country, you have sort of an obligation to make sure the country is rebuilt or something, right? But I don't think that is actually applied all the time accurately. Like most of these political theories, like most of these geopolitical theories, they're not actually applied every single time. I mean, you can take the Iraq invasion in Iraq the first time, the Gulf War. I think it's clear the issue was Saddam, right? But you didn't take out Saddam, so break? Did you really clean up what happened? And then you let Saddam gas the Kurds. I mean, it's clear he was a problem, but you didn't take him out. So did you clean it up? I mean, again, I don't think this theory, this idea of you break it, you bought it, necessarily works because I'm unsure of what the ramifications of that would be. Um, for example, in regards to Afghanistan, what would be paying back our debt in Afghanistan? What would that be? Would it be a strong democratic country? Would it be or would it just be a country that's loyal to the West? Would it be a trade partner to the West? I mean, what would it be? I would like to see you lay that out. What would be us paying back our debt to Afghanistan? Next, you say you wanted to talk about WikiLeaks again. You say WikiLeaks have done their due diligence. You probably wouldn't, you know, be making such an argument, right? Um, well, I don't think anyone who's supporting WikiLeaks is saying they're above reproach. Uh, WikiLeaks is not a perfect organization. I don't expect perfection from them. I do think I do think I've seen slight improvements in the way they are handling these issues in these documents. I think maybe some things have been not handled as well as they thought, and I think I've heard interviews where people from WikiLeaks have sort of expressed that they would have handled other documents in a different way, in a better way, in a more sanitized way, if you will, right? But no one's saying that WikiLeaks is perfect. So it seems like people who agree with you, D. Lennon, are saying this about people like me, people like myself, or John Flipper, or Got That Funk, or whoever, who's on this side, Diamo is evil, whoever is on the side of WikiLeaks. That we're saying that, oh, they're perfect and they're above reproach. No one is saying that. Who is saying that? I mean, I sure as hell haven't said that. WikiLeaks isn't perfect, but I think ultimately they're uh, they're they are a force for good, and I'd rather have them here than not here. So, and then you get into sort of people sort of calling you a shell, and right, just say you have some ties that may sort of bring your credibility on this issue into question. Okay, one, I don't think you're a shill. Never called you a shill. In fact, I think I am the one who told Jama Flipper that calling you a shill is a little over the top, and he should sort of rethink. My view of a shill is someone who who takes an issue, who on whatever issue you want to talk about, is just arguing this point because he wants money, or he wants respect, or he wants status, right? That to me is a shell. Someone who does not believe in his position. Someone who is dishonestly arguing a position he was dishonestly arguing a position that he doesn't believe in. That to me is a shell. I don't think that's you. I don't think that's you, Landon. I think you believe in your argument, and you're making the best argument you can. Now we can maybe agree or disagree about how I feel about your arguments or the validity of your arguments, etc., etc., etc. We can go round and round about how I feel about the arguments, about how you feel about my arguments, etc., etc. But the bottom line is, you believe in this, so I don't think you're a shill. To me, that's what a shill is. And I don't think you're that. Because if you were a shill, I don't know why the hell you're on YouTube arguing with us. Seems like a waste of your time. Anyway, okay, so then you sort of respond to some comments, right? One comment you responded to was by Divinity, and and you basically said you don't see it as a oppressive regime. Now, I don't exactly know what Divinity was referring to because I didn't scroll through the comments last time. I just sort of left my comment. So I don't know what she was referring to when she said oppressive regime or oppressive state. I don't know if she was referring to the United States. I don't know if she was referring to the West in general. She's referring to the West in general. I think that's a little bit. I think that could be a little ambiguous. That could be a bit of ambiguity in that. But if she's referring to the United States, I wholeheartedly agree with her. I wouldn't. I wholeheartedly agree with her. I couldn't agree with her more. And the reason why I agree with her is because the United States does not follow the will of the people. They oftentimes ignore the will of the people. A good example is Don't Ask, Don't Tell. 70% of the country supports Don't Ask, Don't Tell, but yet it didn't pass. And and there are a lot of other issues. A lot of the country doesn't want these tax cuts extended, right? Majority of the country either only doesn't want these tax cuts extended, but there was just a compromise to extend all the tax cuts. So again, when the elites overrule the will of the people, I find that to be oppressive. When the elites or when the ruling class ignore the majority of the people and do what they want, I find that oppressive because they are disenfranchising the voters, and I don't find that to be very democratic when you ignore the voters and do what you want. So that's why I agree with her 100% that it is oppressive. And last part here, it was a response to Socialist Reign. and she made some statement about the state screwing over the poor. Um, to be quite honest, I was kind of surprised in your response to that. You seem very, very defensive and dismissive about that, which I think is sort of interesting. That you're sort of defensive and dismissive about her comment. Um, and basically, you're saying, "Oh, that's not important to the context of the argument." I think it's important. If we're talking about Afghanistan, maybe not important in the sense of in the sense of WikiLeaks, but it is important in the sense of the war effort, right? Aren't isn't Afghanistan one of the most poorest countries on the world? Don't most of the don't most of them live on like $1 a day or something? I mean, I mean, I see poverty as an issue, and I think one of the issues in Afghanistan is that the current government, the Karzai government, is a corrupt government, and they just and they don't really do things to support the people there. Just that little cliche group, like it's the elites living in Kabul, living in mansions, and everyone else living out in rural areas, living in living in shacks, living in just really destitute places to be living in. You know, I think poverty is an issue in the context of the Afghanistan war and the fight there. I think it is important, and I'd like to see you sort of bring that in and sort of be inclusive in that discussion about how you're going to how you're going to deal with that, because I think that is an issue. That Afghanistan is a very poorest country, and how are you going to fight against? How are you going to fight against like the fact that if a country like the United States gives money to a country like Afghanistan, and they've never seen money like this, how are you going to keep them from being corrupt? Because I think one of the things that the WikiLeaks releases have shown is that the Afghanistani government is corrupt. Karzai has a corrupt government, and I think it's an issue. And I also think it sort of ties into terrorism as well. If the United States and NATO come and if the United States in particular comes and bombs your village and bombs your farm and kills your whole entire family, one, there's a sort of emotional motive to sort of join the Taliban, but two, if a Talibani leader comes and flashes a bunch of money and says, listen, we can help you, we'll give you a place to live, and we're going to help you fight the Americans who did this to you, and they give you money, I'm pretty sure probably the most money a person's ever seen in their whole entire life. I'm sure that that's going to be very persuasive to that person, even if they're sort of against killing others. You know, so I think poverty is an issue, and I think you should engage in it. And I felt like what you did was sort of shut down debate on that for whatever reason. You sort of shut down debate and sort of dismissed it as not relevant to the context of the argument. Now, maybe not necessarily relevant to WikiLeaks, but I think relevant to the ongoing debate we're having, is I think WikiLeaks is sort of ongoing debate we're having about our role in Afghanistan. And I think poverty is an important role, and I'd like to see you sort of expand on that and not just be sort of dismissive and try to shut down debate on that issue. I'd like to see you engage that. Anyway, that's my response. I'll talk to everyone later. Guys, progressive. Peace.